Greetings and welcome to another episode of TechNet Radio. I'm Dan Stolts. I'll be your host today. You can reach me on my blog at itproguru.com or on Twitter at itproguru. I'm excited to have a friend and local leader as my guest. I'm joined today by Paul Thurrott, and we're going to count down Paul's top 10 reasons why you should care about upgrading to Windows 10. Hi, Paul. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan. Thanks a lot. Good to see you.
So maybe before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about you, what you do? Obviously, a lot about your blog and your writing. Speaking of writing, you also have a book. Maybe you can kind of update us on what's going on with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, short version, I've been covering Microsoft professionally for over 20 years. I've written somewhere in the 25 to 30 book range, almost exclusively about Microsoft technologies, usually Windows. I started at Windows IT Pro 15 or 17 years ago. I left there about a year and a half ago, and I'm now at Petri, and I have my own website, Thurrott.com. And so my most recent book is the Windows 10 Field Guide, which I co-wrote with Martin McLean and Rafael Rivera, and you can find that on leanpub.com. And I probably write about Windows 10 just about every single day, I would imagine these days. Yeah.
And I'm a follower, so I'm getting that's how I get.
I'm so sorry.
Your insight comes far faster than my internal channels for getting information, so it's awesome.
Sure, thank you.
So today our topic is we're going to count down your top 10 reasons why you should care about upgrading to Windows 10. And I noticed number 10, it's kind of a no-brainer. Well, a lot of them are no-brainers, but especially number 10 because it is free. So tell us why that's such a big deal now and why it's important.
So Microsoft announced sometime probably in January that there were over 200 million devices running Windows 10, and most of those were upgrades, which is awesome, PC upgrades primarily. That's never really happened with Windows, with the possible exception being Windows 95 quite a long time ago. And so I think the big news there, aside from the fact that it is free for individuals, is that the upgrade process has improved to the point where most normal people can actually undergo this, and that's been proven in that 200 million figure, I think. And that's a big, big deal, because it allows people to take existing computers and get them up to date with the latest technologies, the latest security, the latest features, and all that kind of stuff. Now, the one exception here, of course, is that it's not technically free for businesses. And, of course, depending on the size of the business and the scope of their relationship with Microsoft, they probably have an enterprise agreement, and they're on a perpetual ability to upgrade cycle as it is. But the ability to upgrade to Windows 10 for free for consumers and for individuals is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, and I guess I'll add to that. Microsoft, it obviously cost them a lot of money to be able to do that, but really they're looking at it seems to me like they're looking at businesses being able to kind of fund the Windows effort as well as new PCs, because whenever you get a new PC, ultimately you're paying for Windows that way as well.
Yeah, and I think it's better for the entire community of users that everyone be upgraded to the latest technology when possible, right? It's kind of reduces the attack surface. It gives Microsoft less work to do across multiple Windows versions to, protect against different attacks and so forth. So good news all around.
Yeah, and that actually leads us to number 9, which is automatic and regular updates. And I'll preface this by saying not only do I agree with that, but from the standpoint of just from the development effort behind the scenes, the limited number of different products that they have to support is kind of a big key there too. So can you tell us about the updates?
Yeah, this is a big one, and it's actually semi-controversial in some circles because, of course, especially in businesses, they're very used to doing things on their own schedule. And with Windows 10, Microsoft wants to treat Windows like a cloud service, essentially, where it's continually evergreen, it's always refreshed, it's always up to date. And the point of this isn't so much new features, although we do see new features being added to Windows 10 on a fairly regular basis. It's really about the security and integrity of the system and keeping everyone at the same level, because it's not just about different Windows versions, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. It's also about different versions within a version. Some people might be on a service pack. They might be at a certain update level on Windows 8 or whatever. And this is a way to get everyone as close to possible across the board. And I should say, for businesses, there is choice. They have various technology, some of which are new to this version, where businesses can choose to be on different upgrade levels as they go. And so it's sort of a way to do the right thing for individuals and let businesses move forward at their own pace as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I really love about this, continuous update or this, operating system as a service, software as a service model is that you have a very finite number of machines that you have to test, and that Microsoft has to test against, which means they hopefully can do a much better job of making sure that everything's going to work, so things aren't going to be breaking as people roll out. And speaking of that, a typical operating system in the past has been anywhere from 5 to 7 years worth of development. So when you roll that much code out, it's inevitable things are going to break. And by having this model where they're doing updates every several times a year, that gives you a much smaller possibility of, or much smaller amounts of code that you have to test and regression test against.
Yeah.
Now, number 8. Hello. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Tell us about Windows Hello.
Yeah. Well, in Windows 8, Microsoft introduced new ways of signing into the computer, and they were interesting. A PIN type sign-in like you would have on a mobile device. There was a picture password sign-in type, which was kind of interesting. But in Windows 10, this stuff really goes to the next level with new biometric sign-in types. And Windows Hello, there are 3 basic technologies. 2 are camera-based. One is an iris scan. One is a full facial scan. And then the third one is one we're sort of familiar with from ThinkPads and other devices, which is a fingerprint swipe or a press. And by integrating this kind of biometric sign-in into Windows and then extending it out to online services as well through Windows Passport, Microsoft is making Windows 10 a much simpler system for people to use securely, which I think is the big deal because we don't have to memorize multiple crazy passwords and so forth. And I think this is the beginning of the end of that password nightmare that we all go through.
Yeah, but the cameras that we're using, that we're talking about here, are not the standard cameras where you can stick a piece of paper with a picture in front of it.
Yeah, you can't hold up a picture.
Yeah,
exactly. And
spoof it. So,
yeah.
But that also brings up a point that as I know this is, your target audience is really consumers, but for those that are in the professional world, that means corporate standards probably need to change, right? As we start thinking about what machines we're going to be deploying in our organizations, we probably want to start making sure that we're supporting these types of hardware configurations.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we move to number 7, let's talk about the browser.
Right. So for the first time since there was a browser from Microsoft has a new web browser in Windows 10. And this one has been built from the ground up to be standards compliant and all that kind of stuff. So it's thin and it's light and it moves really quickly and all that. Currently in Windows 10, it's kind of in an incomplete state because it doesn't support things like extensions and a couple of other features that people might be used to from other browsers, although actually literally this week as we're recording this, they launched the first pre-release version of Edge that does support extensions. Mm-hmm. And so that's very exciting. And that's going to be things for, ad blocking, password management from LastPass and other services and all that stuff. But the reason I still really like Edge today is because it renders the web so beautifully. If you put this thing side by side with other browsers, there's something about it's like ClearType Plus. It's just an awesome display for someone like me who spends the day reading and writing on the web. I just love the way it looks. So I'm really looking forward to this thing becoming a little bit more complete so I can just use it as my only browser going forward.
Yeah, and there's some extra add-on benefits that I whenever they first came out, I was like, okay, yeah, nobody's ever going to use this. This is cool, but nobody's ever going to use it. Being able to write on the screen and all that stuff. But I actually find that I use it all the time. I'll write on the screen and I'll use that as a screenshot because people will send me emails all the time. How do I do this? Or can you show me how to do that? Or where's this information? Or where's that information? And, I used to spend a lot of time, or I spend a lot of time and I just send them a link. Okay, here's the link. This answers your problem. But a lot of times that's buried in like an 8-page, step-by-step guide. And really all they missed is one little thing, or all I want to point out is one little thing on that article. Now I can circle the thing that they're interested in instead of them having to spend 20 minutes to figure out where in that long document, that I'm trying to guide them. Right. That and the Cortana integration and stuff like that is, it actually makes me a better communicator. So that's, in addition to being beautiful and fast and secure, it also helps me in other ways as well.
So it sounds like you use a Surface or a Surface-like device is what I'm hearing.
I do. I use a Surface, and I love my pen.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a keyboard guy. I've always been a keyboard guy, but I'm starting to get used to the advantages of a touch device, for sure.
I have a friend who does not work at Microsoft who literally does impromptu Surface Book demonstrations where he detaches the screen and walks around with it. And I said to him, you should get $100 every time you do that. It just does it. It just does it on his own, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of Cortana integration
Mhm.
with Edge, Cortana is number 6 on your list. What's Cortana? Who's
Yeah,
coming?
so Cortana is the personal digital assistant. It debuted in Windows Phone a few years back. I think in Windows Phone 8.1 probably. It's part of Windows 10 now on the PCs and also on tablets and on mobile. And I think integrating it directly into the OS is really, really cool because what it does is it ties on to back-end services behind the scenes, including third-party services like Uber and Microsoft Health and so forth. And so it provides you with this little dashboard of what's going on in your life, but it also provides a really kind of human way of interacting with the computer. We can talk to it, kind of like Scotty tried to do in Star Trek 4 or whatever, where you're interacting with this thing the same way that you and I are interacting just by speech. It's really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I know I use mine all the time. I use it on my laptop, on my Surface, and on my phone. I find Cortana incredibly helpful. I don't think she's as good as a paid assistant yet, but
No.
I'm looking forward to
Yep.
as things continue to improve in that respect.
Yeah, and tied to the automatic updates. I mean, that's something we see regularly. Cortana is upgraded all the time.
Yep. Now, number 5 is actually the very first thing with Windows 10 that I fell in love with,
Yeah.
and that is the Action Center. So tell us about the Action Center.
So Microsoft added notifications like we see on mobile devices to Windows with Windows 8, but the thing it didn't have was a notification center, a place where those notifications could kind of collect so that if you're not sitting in front of the computer, the toast appears and you miss it, you have a place to go see what you missed. And that's basically what Action Center provides. And like you, I'm a keyboard guy. So Windows key plus A, by the way, is the quick way to get to Action Center. But it provides, I've got email in there, I've got Xbox in there, security maintenance stuff. If you're familiar with basically any mobile device, really, where you swipe down from the top of the screen and you have some quick action items, it's got that stuff in there as well. And it's an interface that works really, really well, whether you're on, I've got this gigantic screen in front of me with a regular kind of PC, or if you have a mobile device like a tablet or a phone. It's just this one place to go to see what you missed, basically, with your notifications. It's like the missing piece of the notification puzzle.
Yeah, and the thing that I fell in love with, I love the notification, but the part of it that I fell in love with was all the little buttons. So I'll tell you the brightness button I use like all the time, constantly, because I'll adjust my brightness to conserve battery life, and then a one touch for airplane mode. I mean, why didn't we have that years ago?
Yep.
Quiet hours. I work a lot. I work a lot where I don't want to be bothered. I turn on quiet hours and I'm not bothered. So there's some really cool features in addition to just notification in the Action Center.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. So Windows 10 does work great on PCs. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, there are two in this list that seem like they're a little bit connected, and they are sort of. But for me, just as a long time PC guy, I go back decades with Windows-based PCs. Windows 8 was a little too touchy. It was kind of touchy-feely OS. It was touch first, I think was the way Microsoft would say it. Yep. And with Windows 10, they've reached a much better balance. And on the PC side specifically, and by PC I mean traditional PC, not necessarily a touchscreen, although I like those just fine, but keyboard and mouse integration, desktop use, desktop applications and all that stuff. This stuff has all gotten better in dramatic ways. And I used to be able to kind of make a case with Windows 8. You don't understand. There's some really cool stuff in there for the desktop. But with Windows 10, it's all front and center, and I love that stuff. And so it's, the start menu's back. The snap feature that's been actually in Windows since Windows 7, I think, has been upgraded with a snap assist feature, which allows you to, once you've snapped a window to a side of the screen, it will present you with the other window so you can automatically snap one of them. You don't have to go back and find it. Virtual desktops formally added to Windows. Finally, the technology has been there for a long, long time. And a lot of other stuff. There's been command line improvements, both Command Prompt and actually PowerShell. Task manager improvements. File Explorer improvements. There's just all this great stuff. And I live in the desktop. This is what I do. So I love this renewed focus on the PC.
Yeah, this one line could actually be your top 100 because there's so much awesome stuff
break out
in
each one of those.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've used all of them. The one thing is the Snap Assist is great, but even just the snap and the way that in Windows 8 we had that special mode where you didn't
Yeah.
have the title bar and all that crap. All that stuff that we hated about Windows 8 is all
Yes.
gone, and it's, it's fixed in
Well, that's the
Windows
thing. Like,
10. So,
in Windows 8, the desktop was kind of a second-class citizen. You couldn't snap a desktop app. You could only snap the entire desktop.
right.
And so now it's all one and the same. And so if you want, Word for Windows, which is a desktop app on one side, and then the calendar app, which is a mobile app on the other side, no problem. And that's sort of what I mean by this. I really like that the PC part of things, what I think of as, the traditional PC part of things, is a first-class citizen again, as it should be.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah.
Now we're up to number 3. So let me say I have used this. I've demoed this. Whenever I did the launch events, I was the keynote speaker, and I had the opportunity to play with it and demo it, and it was quite impressive.
Yeah.
But I don't have a phone that supports it. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about Continuum and what it is.
Yeah, so Continuum is basically a technology that allows Windows to adapt to the hardware on which it's being used and to do so in real time. And so there are two main uses for it. One is the phone thing that you're referring to, Windows 10 Mobile, where you have a phone. It is a phone, and you plug it into a dock or use a wireless display adapter, and you can connect it wirelessly or wired to keyboard, a mouse, storage devices, big screen, and you can use it as if it were a computer. And the way that works is actually kind of magical because you still have your phone screen. You have what looks like a Windows desktop on the big screen. Universal Apps can run, in many cases, full screen on that thing and really take up the screen. So when you run it on your phone, it's this little portrait type app. But when you run it on the big screen, it's a normal landscape type PC app. And it allows people to have one device that they can use everywhere, and that's really cool. The other place it's used is with 2-in-1s or transforming PCs like Surface, where you might clip on a keyboard to a tablet or detach that keyboard from the tablet, and it can switch automatically. And in the desktop version of Windows 10, they have a feature called tablet mode, where Continuum can switch it in and out of tablet mode based on whether a keyboard is connected. And that's the thing, that my friend who I was talking about, when he unclips the screen from Surface Book, it goes into tablet mode and everything runs full screen. But when he puts it back, Windows return and it's the desktop and it works normally.
But Paul, isn't that obvious that it should do that?
It is obvious that it should do that, but now it does. Yeah.
Okay.
It's obvious when you see it. When you see it, right, that's how it should work.
That's how it should work,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, so work the way you want. So tell us about how Windows works the way you want.
So this is actually related to the last two. I talked about earlier about how Windows 10 works really well on PCs, but that's good for me and that's good for you probably and for a lot of other people. But there are people who are big fans of Windows 8 and the way that thing worked. They're fans of that touch first user interface. There are people who use a big screen and a keyboard and a mouse, but they still want the things to be full screen and they still want that old style of interaction. One of the neat things about Windows 10 is not just that it adapts automatically, which by the way is an optional feature, but you can configure it the way that you want it. So if you use a tiny Windows tablet, but you still want floating windows on a desktop, you can do that. If you have a giant 32-inch screen and you want things to be full screen all the time in tablet mode, you can do that. And I think that's really neat because Windows 8, I think, was a little too far in that one direction, but now we've got this thing where we brought back the PC stuff, but if you like that touch first stuff, you know what, you can do that too. And I think this is just really nice. It's multiple types of input, mouse, keyboard, pen, however you touch, of course, I should say, and however you wish to interact with the computer, you can do it however you want, and that's very freeing.
Yeah, it is very, very, very customizable, and the reality is, I think a lot of customers don't go in and look at all of those different places where it is customizable.
Right.
And if you spend a little bit of time, and I know you've blogged a lot about some of the cool things that you can do with Windows, you can really tweak Windows 10 to make it work exactly the way that you want it to work and do some pretty awesome things.
Yes.
Now, before we unveil the number
Yep.
one reason, let's just do a quick rehash. So
Okay.
it's free.
Yep.
Automatic and regular updates is number 9. Number 8 is Windows Hello, biometric security. Number 7 was the Edge browser. Number 6, Cortana. Number 5, Action Center and notifications. And number 4, works great on PCs. Start menus back, Snap, Assist, etc. Number 3, Continuum. A pocket, a computer in your pocket. Just ad monitor. And number two, work the way you want. So these are all pretty awesome things, but what is the number one reason why people should care about upgrading to Windows 10?
So this is one, this is almost the stealth one, because I think a lot of people wouldn't really consider this quite yet as being the number one reason, but I think this is going to play a big role in the success of Windows 10 going forward. And that's the Universal Windows Platform. It's this updated mobile apps platform that Microsoft has been working on since, Windows 8 days. But the interesting thing about this is that in the past, we used to have things that were sort of Windows. We had Windows Embedded, we had Windows Phone, we had Windows Mobile. We had Windows for switches and Windows for, small embedded devices and Windows, all the place Windows. But with Windows 10, it really is the same platform. They're bringing all of this stuff together. And so we have Windows 10 on PCs and tablets, and this is basically what most people think of as Windows 10. We also have Windows 10 on phones, or Windows 10 mobile. We have Windows 10 as the core OS now on the Xbox, and this year the Xbox One will be upgraded to support Universal Windows Platform apps, the Windows Store, and Cortana, for example. Exciting new hardware types like the HoloLens mixed reality headset, the Surface Hub conference system, Windows 10. Windows 10 runs on IoT devices like the Raspberry Pi 2, Raspberry Pi 3. It's basically this sort of Windows everywhere thing that we've always sort of had, but now is real, because as a developer, you can go into Visual Studio and you can target your apps on all of these platforms, or just some of these platforms. You could say, I want my app to run on tablets and PCs and phones and Xbox. Check, 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 and off you go. And Visual Studio has the smarts to help you make that stuff happen, because, again, it's got this adaptable UI and all that stuff is possible. And so in the past, we had lots of Windows, and today and moving forward, we have one Windows. And I think that's, in many ways, the most exciting thing of all. And I should say, too, for the user, there's cross-buy things that can occur. You can buy an app on Windows Phone, and now you get that app for free on the computer as well. There's lots of neat aspects. It's good for users, it's good for developers, it's good for the whole community.
I love this as well, and I think it absolutely deserves to be on number one. And I look at it, and really I'm looking for your feedback to tell me if I'm like full of it, or if there's some validity to this.
Yep.
The Universal Windows Platform I see as not only a game changer for Windows, but perhaps even a game changer for Microsoft in general. And the reason why I kind of think of it that way is, when we look at the places that Microsoft has struggled, Windows Phone is an example. It's all been about the app, right, and not having the apps. And we look at where Microsoft is super successful on the desktop, where they have all the apps, and now having a single platform over time where somebody is going to write an application for the desktop that everybody's going to use, it's automatically going to work on the Windows Phone, on the Xbox, on the TV, on whatever. It seems to me like that's kind of a game changer for the whole application discussion. Does the application discussion go away in 3 to 5 years after people rev those apps?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. And we didn't really even touch on the fact that Microsoft is making it easier for developers who already have desktop apps, have web apps, have iOS or Android apps, can bring those apps into the Windows, the Universal Windows Platform as well, very easily. And I think it's not as simple as checking a box. I don't mean to underestimate the difficulty in some cases, but when you're like you said, when you're developing an app and you say, look, I want this to run on the Windows desktop, the fact that you can have it run on phones or have it run on the Xbox, run on HoloLens, run on embedded devices is astonishing. The ability to do that very easily. You're not porting an app. It's the same app. And I think that's really, really cool. And, it's evolved over time. I mean, it's gotten to, there were ways in the past where it wasn't too hard, depending on how you did it. But the fact that we literally have a single platform now is just a huge deal. It has to be number one. I don't see how it couldn't be.
So just a follow-up question on this, because there are a lot of applications on other platforms, whether it be iOS or Android,
Right.
And there are now some really awesome technologies to be able to convert those apps into the Windows platform. What do you see in your expert opinion, and as you look at the market all up, how fast is that? How fast is that? You expect that's going to go? Is that
when will then be now?
Yeah, when will then be now?
I think it's really tied to Microsoft's announcement that they have a goal that within 2 to 3 years there'll be over 1 billion devices on Windows 10, and we're a fifth of the way plus to that number now. I think they're going to hit that number, and I think that positions Windows 10 as a viable platform against Android or iOS, because these are platforms that will by this time also be in that billion user range. Billion user range, and it's a first-class target environment for developers.
Right.
And in the past, I think we took things a little unilaterally. From a Windows or Microsoft perspective, you said, well, I have to use this device and this device, and I think the truth is out in the real world in businesses too. People use different device types. And from a developer perspective, if you can get in front of people on Windows, on the desktop, on tablets, if and then take your iOS app and make that available over there as well, and go back and forth in both directions, I think is a big deal. Microsoft, bought Xamarin. I mean, Xamarin is a way for Windows-focused developers to to bring apps that are written C# from Windows to other platforms too. So they're going in both directions, and I think this is reflective of how the real world works. It's smart.
So you think it's a good play?
Yeah, I think it's right. I think it's the smart
so
thing.
That wraps up our top 10. I appreciate you being on the show. So now that people understand that there are some really compelling reasons to upgrade to Windows 10, what do they do? What's next? Is it I guess go do the update from the
just accept the update. Well, look.
Yeah,
I
Microsoft,
think
you can just dump it on my machine.
Just say yes. No, I think from the perspective of an individual, obviously education's key. I have a site. Microsoft has information. I have a book as well. But I mean, I think the important thing is just to be pragmatic about it. If you're going to upgrade a computer to Windows 10, back it up. Have your recovery media ready and see how it goes. I do think it's something that individuals can do. On the business side, I think the really cool thing here is, the old way of doing things doesn't apply anymore. Some people aren't getting that message very quickly, obviously, but you should be evaluating this right now. And there's no SP1 to kind of wait for. There will be semi kind of big bang releases, of course, going forward, but really this automatic regular update thing is a big deal because things are happening over time. There's nothing really to wait for. It's all there now. And I think people will be surprised at the level of compatibility and familiarity, the lack of training needs for users and so forth. It's not the expensive, ugly proposition that upgrading could have been in the past, depending on the version.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being on the show. And I'll make sure that on the blog post accompanying this, we provide links to all of that great content. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.